Welcome to the Northern Rivers Impact event. I'm Bill Fabian, Vice President at NBT Bank. While we wish we were all together, what really matters here is that we all take the time to pay attention to what's important. To NBT, that means making a difference in our community, and NBT is proud to be Northern Rivers' lead corporate partner in 2020. We're helping to make a difference in the lives of thousands of children, adults, and families. NBT is pleased to work with this organization as a business partner too, providing services to support their great staff of 1,400 essential workers. It's people who really matter, and our goal is to show you how people have the power to make change. You'll hear from a few of those 1,400 professionals from throughout this great organization, talking about what they do, how they do it, who they serve, and how they make this a better community to live, learn, grow, and raise a family. These stories are about what it means to be essential. Listen and be inspired. Thank you and stay well.
Hi, I'm Justin Priddle, Chair of the Northern Rivers Board of Directors. This has been a year unlike any other, but COVID-19 or not, some things stay the same. Northern Rivers remains committed to serving 18,000 children, adults, and families who come to us for support this and every year. We tackle every obstacle to ensure that our clients get the help they need. Whether it's giving them the tools to work anywhere and everywhere, or reallocating resources to meet the challenges intensified by this global pandemic. Our job as leaders is to empower our great team. And we couldn't do that without the help of some incredible corporate partners who stood by us no matter what. And we couldn't do any of it without you. Thank you for being part of our family. And since we're having a little video reunion instead of an in-person event, come on and meet some of the rest of our family. Starting with the guy at the head of the table, Bill Getman.
Thank you, Justin. It's a very exciting time. Our entire community and our entire state and our entire nation are going through real challenges. But at Northern Rivers, we still are optimistic about today and the future. Our staff at Northern Rivers has been incredible during COVID-19. While our health has been challenged and our core values are tested, our staff got up every single day since the pause and came to work. We have over 120 kids who live with us. We have several thousand kids receiving care management. We have families in our mental health programs that depend on us, and our mobile team is always rolling every day of the week. Despite the challenges of our health and our safety some days, staff left their families and came to work to care for kids and the most vulnerable. So we thought it was a little insensitive or perhaps inappropriate to talk and brag from a corporate sense about how great Northern Rivers are. We think we're doing a great job in the community, and we look forward to another year next year of great successes. As we enter the Thanksgiving season, we have much to be thankful for. We're thankful for our staff, our donors, our partners, our leaders, and most of all, our families, kids, and adults. So we'd like to spend a few minutes today not bragging about our numbers and our statistics, but talking about the real impact. We'd like to talk about the impact upon families and kids and things our staff has done. There's a sense of optimism at Northern Rivers because we are strong and we are committed, and we will be here in 2021 and 2022 and many years after. And the reason for that is because you are donors and friends, but most importantly, because of our staff. So sit back, take a breath, and hear the real stories of 2020 impact at Northern Rivers.
That we could not lose that connection with the children or with the families. So part of what we did included contact with the families weekly. We maintained that connection, and we were able to say, how is it going? What do you need? And families responded. Families who were employed and were self-sufficient were now struggling, and they were struggling because they no longer had a paycheck. They were struggling because not only was there a lot of hoarding and people were buying everything in sight, So even our families who had the resources to buy, who maybe didn't have a car, would go to the local supermarket and there'd be nothing to buy. And they couldn't get to the one further away because they didn't drive. And so we found that they were just lacking in food and other resources. So initially we assessed, and we had 25 families who said, we really need some help with food and formula and diapers and infant cereal, because we just can't find them in the store, or we don't have the resources to purchase them. By about 3 or 4 months in, we grew from serving 25 families to about 100 on a weekly basis. When we started out with 25 families, we thought, oh, we have to figure out how to get this to them because they can't leave their homes. So we had staff who came in to volunteer. Our food service staff worked every day. There was no program closure for them. They came in, they cooked, they packed food. And as our numbers grew, we thought, okay, now we have 100 families. How do we get food to these 100 families? And thanks to one of our schools, the bus driver said, we have buses. So they came in twice a week and they volunteered and they delivered food between the bus drivers and our staff who volunteered to over 100 families.
We got a call from a young man that was discharged from our program about 6 months ago. He happened to be one of the victims in one of the community shootings in Albany. So here he is from his hospital bed, and he picked up the phone and called his care manager that he had 6 months prior. To me, that was probably one of the, I'm like getting a little teary about it, that was probably one of the biggest impacts, and to see the impact of what these care managers are doing, that 6 months after discharge, that kid is calling his care manager for help. And then that care manager puts herself into harm's way and immediately goes to meet with that grandmother that day to get paperwork signed and get everything initiated so she can get back involved in his life so that they can have a safe, better future. I'm saddened to say we've had numerous cases that have been victims in a lot of the violence, and the level of work the care managers are doing, they're working through the clock. When we had another member who also was nearly fatally injured, and mom had 9 other kids at home. So helping to secure a plan for all of those children so mom could be at the hospital with the kid, and that was a lot of teamwork. That was reaching out to behavioral health. That was reaching out to mobile crisis. That was really reaching out and collaborating with all of the players and coming up with a plan.
We had a regular crew of adults who would go to the food bank in the school van and pick up as much food as we could. And we called it Tetris of how many boxes can we fit here and what can we load into this. Sometimes come back in that day with 1,000 pounds of food. So we would set up my room with boxes, and we would just start putting one item in each box. We would call and say, okay, we're getting out, we're putting it on your step, and hop back in. And the kids would just run out. It was as if they would see somebody they knew and they'd be like, hi! And we would deliver homework and pick up homework, but it became an easy way to connect with families. One family, the first time that we were able to deliver frozen meat, there was a pork loin, and we'd had potatoes and some canned food. And she's like, we're gonna have a date night. We're gonna put out candles and set the table and cook a meal to make it special. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's just wonderful that the food that we were delivering made it an event.
We have lots of challenges that our families deal with on a day-to-day basis. One of the major things that the majority of our families have is underlying mental health issues. Over the last year, and especially within the last 6 to 9 months, that's really popped up for our families, being able to come up with those strategies that help them to deal with daily stressors kind of got taken away from them once the pandemic started. So helping them to find the telehealth or their neighbor down the street that they could connect with, ways to get out of the day-to-day, maybe just taking a walk,
Yeah, and since a lot of our children are here because of their behavioral needs, that doesn't stop when they're at home. So it was really important for our staff to continue to provide social stories, to work with the families on setting up little behavior charts and plans within the home. For the related services, our speech therapist, I did hear from a number of the parents that they learned how to give speech therapy. I mean, they were watching it, so they learned how to continue it better. And we've actually started to have, with all this new technology, the parents are actually joining in-person speech therapy sessions virtually. So the child doesn't really know they're there. So they get a good picture of what it looks like. And again, we have parents who had that before, who wanted to continue it so they knew how to do it the way the speech therapist did it. And again, our social worker and a psychologist were there to support the families as well. And I think a lot of it was that behavioral, being cooped up with, I'm sure, being cooped up with a preschooler for that length of time is difficult to begin with. But then if you have children who have challenges to just on top of that, it just made it that much difficult. So the stress on the families in that way was evident.
My family, my fiance were definitely worried on more than a few occasions about me coming in, but it's an essential service. Our staff can't help people if they can't get online or use the phone. I just kept coming in. It just seemed like the right thing to do.
We're talking to Paul, and Kim Cummins comes into the office. We're just trying to figure out how to get the clinicians to be able to video chat with the clients. Kim referred to Doxy.me, didn't know about it, just ran with it, did some tests with the little time that we could, and we rolled that out early that afternoon. Doxy.me and any other related services, we learned really quick how to use them so that we can support the staff.
As a history teacher, I think about the past. I knew the masks were going to be coming, and I decided to just start sewing masks. And my TA joined me, and then another fellow staff in our therapeutic support team also joined the effort. And we managed to make the homemade masks for everybody in the school, everybody at the residential treatment facility, and all our students as well. The kids, leaned on us, for some guidance and for, a direction of purpose. One of the kids, I remember he was really down, and I said, something? When we can't do what we do, we got to do what we can. And I said, would you like to help me in my mask making department? And he worked so hard on providing, the materials, cutting the pieces for the masks, cutting the elastic pieces at the right length, giving the kids a purpose and a direction when there isn't, and it needs to be replaced with something else. And I think that a lot of the kids picked up on that, and they were that word was spreading around, and they would contribute in other ways. So I think that it became contagious to strive, really, to just strive.
So one of the nice things about this was that we actually got more face-to-face time with some folks, right? So our program is huge, all the way from Saranac Lake to Kingston out to, Delaware and Shenango County. So the face-to-face things like supervision sometimes had started to get more challenging. So, just because of proximity, getting down to places to meet with staff. So the fact that we could just do this, and we could do this on a weekly basis, we actually tightened up a lot of that. And I think that in itself helps staff, because they're still seeing us, and they're realizing that this is okay. We've queried a lot of our staff because we've just been curious of how folks are doing, and they are loving working from home. The work-life balance that they now have. We have staff that are, incorporating exercise now into their life, and they've lost, tremendous amount of weight, and just tons of people talking about how much healthier they've become because they've gotten rid of some of that normal, the rat race, I think, that we were all in and didn't even realize it.
That they miss our gatherings and they miss just seeing people in the halls and chatting for 5 minutes, it's, but on the flip side of that, we did also become stronger, I think, over this because we've essentially interacted a little bit more with everyone so scared because we're using the technology we had to connect more often. Now you're checking in more often to make sure people are doing okay, both personally and professionally. And I think the technology has been great to allow us to do that.
One of the things I've always said to first clients as a clinician and then my staff as I've become a supervisor was that we have to put our own oxygen mask on first. So if you're not taking care of yourself and you're not doing the things you need to keep your level full, you're not going to be beneficial to anybody else. We've talked a lot about what things kind of bring us joy. And those may have changed over the last 6 months. It might just be watching a Hallmark movie all the time. It may be reading a book. It may be sitting and coloring with your 6-year-old. I think there's been a huge lesson during the last 6 to 9 months of really focusing on the little things. 2020 has taught us to slow down a little bit and take time to enjoy what nature brings us.
What we have seen with this is actually surprisingly our numbers have gone up in terms of engagement. And I think that really is due to the fact that we're able to efficiently and effectively meet our clients' needs in their own space. They feel more comfortable. You don't have to stare someone in the eye. You don't have to feel uncomfortable with body language. You then don't have to worry about getting in the car with your parents to go home after your session. One client specifically that we did have was on the autism spectrum, and being in an office space was probably one of the biggest things of people, noise, sound. So not being able to be here is, a disadvantage of not having that connection with the client physically. But I think for that specific client, it's been great for him to be in his own environment, feel comfortable to talk about things, not have a lot of stressors, because then also we actually have the full hour of the session. Before it was a lot of kind of wind down, let's try to get settled, because they're either angst in the waiting room or concerned about the hallway traffic, that now that person can start exactly when their session starts and ends it and have that full hour to talk about the things they need to talk about. So telehealth has definitely been a blessing for a lot of our clients who have been very good in terms of building up their resiliency and really realizing that they can get through this and how they can apply that in other ways in their life.
We have a group in Albany, a parent group that typically would meet in the community. We would meet for coffee after work, and the place that we meet closes at 6 o'clock, and schedules had to be manipulated for this person to get there, that person to get there. Well, when it went virtual and we were able to do it by Zoom, everyone said, hey, we don't have to meet at 5 or 4:45. Is everybody good with meeting at 7 o'clock at night? And everybody said, heck yeah. So we were all in our living rooms in our comfy chairs with our, our footsie pajamas on, some of them, and everyone with their cup of tea or cup of coffee, and everybody was comfortable. And the meetings, those groups, they went on sometimes for over 2 hours. And one particular night it was 9:45, and a parent said, I hate to leave.
I kept researching all different types of parks in the New York State. So every week with a client, we tried out doing walks at different parks and different trail walks. One client who always utilized the service to go to the library all the time. And once the library got shut down, this one particular client was being more open to try out activities by doing walking into the park. And while walking in the park, that also helps me to get to know the client a lot more, because the clients now start initiating the conversation.
One of the things I did was fishing, so I said, I wonder how they would go. So I took them to a local place in East Greenwood called Hampton Lake, and I knew the time of year it was. If you throw that bobber in there, they were going to be in for the fight of their life. And so I had taken 3 kids out there and I set them to help show them how to do the rig the poles, and then I made them do it, right? And sure enough, the first pole starts bending over. And the kid's like, get it. I'm like, I'm not getting nothing. That's your fish, that's your pole. They were so excited. And then I learned it was the first fish he ever caught in his life. I'd be lying if I tell you I didn't get as excited as he did when I saw his face when he saw that fish. And the trust factor. Our kids really struggle with trust. And so I wish I could have filmed the exchange that went on for about a minute where I'm telling him, trust me, he can't bite you. He doesn't have teeth. It feels like sandpaper. You got to put your hand in here to keep them alive. You got to hold them down and hold them. And they was put their hand out and they snatch it back, and they put their hand out and snatch it back. And so this went on and on and on until he finally just trusted it. I said, now you got to hold him long enough I can take a picture. So that trust that he had for me to hold the fish long enough for me to take the picture of him, to be able to share with him, was amazing. And the big part about having that experience with the kids is being able to process with them after what that felt like. And that there are some things that can make you feel great that don't involve illicit things and risky behaviors and things like that, that you can feel good doing some natural things like fishing.
The beginning part of the pandemic was exceptionally hard for them. Mom had some trauma surrounding a death of a loved one, and she fell back into old patterns and began using substances. She is now done with all of her drug treatment. She is clean and sober. Her children are at a point where they have unsupervised contact with her and will most likely be returned home prior to Christmas. Although she had a little bit of a stumble, being able to have that slow down and really focus on herself, and then the things that led to her kids being placed really helped her to push forward and be able to take that extra step she needed to maintain her sobriety.
A young lady who was constantly either running away from home or getting thrown out of her home. Chaotic home life, all kinds of problems at school, all kinds of problems with friends, real difficulties. And the most recent communication with this girl is that not only did she go back and get her high school diploma, but she's now in school to become a dental hygienist. She's grown up and she's moved forward. And the reason we know that is because she has said it in those words herself. Another young man who we've had in program for a while, one of those families you'd say, why is this kid in program, But he had real needs, real special needs, that prevented him from sometimes even walking out his front door. He did have a dream, he did want to be able to go out, and he did want to do things like the other kids, and he did want to have a job, and he is working part-time in a shoe store, which was his dream job that he had wanted to have.
We know that some of the kids come with problems that guardians and foster parents and communities just can't handle. And that's where we feel like we could fit that need and be able to be present for them. So kids were getting really excited. About 4 weeks out, they started practicing what it was going to look like when they move, who was going to move first. And so first it was like the older kids can do it faster. Then it was like, no, we want the younger kids to go. We want them because, we're older, so we could hold on longer. It was the cutest thing to watch them. And then the other part of that excitement was for the staff, because in keeping with the trauma-informed care, this building was trauma-informed, and staff really looked to me and my experience to help them understand what that meant. And I said, well, we talk about kids and trust issues all the time. And even behind me, you see the office with the window along the door. I said, that's trauma-informed window. They was like, I don't get that. So I was like, well, imagine that you couldn't see through this office and I had a trust issue and I closed the door. So, so even that whole idea and concept with the staff and the students, helping them to understand that direction we were moving in caused a great excitement for both the kids and the staff.
What really pretty much kicked this into high gear, as it's always been a topic of conversation, was the murder of George Floyd and how everything had turned out into events with that into the communities. And we've gone through it before where we've said enough is enough, but talking isn't just enough anymore, right? So we need to see some actionable things that are put in place. And I think that's what we're getting now with that Social Justice Council. So we want to make sure with the Social Justice Council that it is built upon diversity, it is built upon integrity, and it is built also with the sense of nurturing love, right? We have to make sure that we know what we're standing for, that we know we're going to fight for things that we love in this particular sense. And we love for peace, we love for justice, we love for equality in that sense, right? And those are things that I feel that when we've developed the Social Justice Council, and even prior to that, we understood that there wasn't enough love and cohesiveness and communication throughout the agency in its entirety, right? Or even going further past the agency throughout our country, right? And seeing a lot of the social unrest. One of the big topics is how can we really help the people we say we want to help if we don't understand them, if we don't look like them, if we don't hear what they're saying, right? We have to make sure we have some relation, or we have some understanding or connection to some of those things, and build that diversity to really implement change and be for people. As well as not only that, but prior to the election, how can we make sure we're informing people on information about politics, about resources, not only within the agency, but within the communities, right? A lot of our communities right now are just getting by or struggling to maintain. So making sure that they have the knowledge and the resources out there. And we're thinking about what are those resources, what are those things that they are in need of, right? That's the starting point. And then the next point is to figure out how we're going to get these things out to those folks, right? It's one thing to come up with the idea, but how are we going to execute it?
Wow, thank you, Tim. We appreciate your leadership in our social justice effort at Northern Rivers. Social justice is a critical issue for us at Northern Rivers and for our entire community, and we commit to be active players and participants. Also, I hope you heard stories about kids and families and resilience today from our fantastic staff. The COVID-19 time period has been a challenge, but we're up to the challenge, and we're up to the challenge because we have great donors, friends, and volunteers, but also because we have an incredible staff. 2021 will be a year that we will continue to make an impact every area of our programs. And again, we will do it in partnership with you, partnerships with our community, partnerships with our young people. Our kids are so resilient. They do fantastic work. Our families are committed to the kids and their future. So as we enter the Thanksgiving season, let me say this: the children that we serve today are the leaders of tomorrow. So please celebrate and say thanks to them, and thanks to the essential workers that are serving the families of the Capital Region. Happy Thanksgiving, be safe, be brave, and we appreciate your support.